r/NoStupidQuestions. Koala Lampor says, what exactly is money laundering? As a kid, I always pictured people tossing money in a washing machine. As an adult, okay, that's still what I picture. I understand why it's done, but how does it actually work? What are the differences between laundering cash or electronic funds? Bang Bang Racist says, the big idea is to take dirty money and to clean it into clean taxable money. You can't exactly tell the eyes that you sold drugs or did other illegal things, so you need to run it through another business, preferably cash-based, so you can claim that it's legal money that you obtained legally and can pay taxes on. Ficklefinger2974 says, actually you can. The eyes has forms for money you got illegally. They won't get mad at you for it, and they won't tell the police either. The problem is your tax records can be obtained by the police if they go looking for them. Weve and Save says, the eyes just want their cut. They don't care where it comes from. But other parts of the government might have a few questions for you about how a guy who works as a cashier at Target suddenly bought 3 new cars and a boat. Eggs Benedril says, let's say you and I deal drugs. We make $10 million. We are not secretive or clever with this money. People, i.e. cops/eyes, will be curious where we got all our newly obtained money. We open a mattress store that never does any actual business, but we fake its books to show that we made 10 million last year. The money is laundered through another business to appear as legitimate earnings. Koala Lampor says, $10 million, huh? Damn, I'm in the wrong business. Okay, this makes a lot of sense, thank you. For some reason I was thinking it somehow involved the feds tracking the money, like how kidnappers ask for unmarked bills. That works with cash, obviously, but not with intangible money. But this clears it all up. So basically, the mattress store is just a front, with no real employees or sales or anything. The owners then falsify their QuickBooks or whatever to show that instead of selling $5k in cocaine, they sold $5k worth of mattresses. Is that it? Eggs Benedril says, you could have employees to make it seem more legit, but if they're in on the scam you likely gotta slip them some more cash. Otherwise you can work for a front. You just sit around all day and wonder how your job stays in business despite never selling anything, lol. You can also launder through actual legit businesses. You just cook the books to also launder money through them. r/NoStupidQuestions. The Big Cookie says, is bear an exclusively gay term, or is it just a body type? I've heard of gay bears and have the same body type. I'm point straight. Though is that a different term? Kevin7650 says, gay guy here. If you call yourself a bear people are gonna assume you're gay. IDK if there's an equivalent for straight guys. Krail says, I think that bod is sort of the straight term for bear. Petita Cherai says, it's mainly a gay term, but anyone can use it. Accord V6 says, bear as in bear is a gay term, but some men in the gym community call a certain body type bear mode, as in on the fluffier side, more body hair and that kind of stuff. Nurtured says, bear is a gay term. Although that seems to be evolving a bit. You could use bearish guy or something like that if you really want to, but gays are going to assume you're gay too. Cora Musel says, wait, so this is why women on social media were choosing between men and bears? Truelet3357 says, mostly a gay thing. Piston and V2 says, the more people chill out about how others perceive their sexuality, the less sexualized these terms become. It's colloquial. Being a bear is already somewhat desexualized. It kinda just means big hair fat dude, but it's also contextual. If you're talking to a bunch of straight people about someone's body type, it's probably going to be assumed you're simply describing someone's appearance. If you're in a gay club saying you're looking for a bear, well, that statement has intention. Lol, it's both. Like most things, language can be complicated. I personally would try not to overthink it. If someone thinks you're gay and wants to have sex with you, they will probably be less subtle than this. Flirty blonde babe says, I think it could be used for anyone. I like bear as a cute as name for a guy. But I wouldn't mind being called baby bear, honey bear etc. Soy Campus says, you just fat homie. r/NoStupidQuestions. Very Vermont says, is it normal to just straight up not care about climbing the corporate ladder? I'm a 23-year-old white collar worker in the US. I've always been a hard working person. Near 4.0. GPA in high school with extracurricular/app classes. Did well in university with a STEM major and competitive internships/research projects. And I landed a job I'm pretty happy with. Now I just want to sit back and actually take it easy for the first time in my life. I clock in at 8 AM and clock out at 5 PM, doing whatever they ask me to do without going the extra mile. I keep an active mind and learn new things, but it's things I want to learn, rather than things my employer would benefit from. I center my life/identity on my hobbies/social life with non-coworkers, rather than what I do professionally. Basically I'm coasting. I can't help but feel bad, and I worry I'm gonna grow stagnant, but I'm sick of the rat race. I just want to. Hasbuddy84 says, yes. Everyone has different priorities and that's totally fine. Cliffy73 says, no, that's fine. That's my view as well. You're just not going to have as much money as your peers, and you have to be okay with that. Primate Intellectus says, congrats. You have figured out at 23 what many don't realize until it's already too late. Rick Cassidy says, I'm going to push back slightly. You worked hard to get here. I'm not saying you need to push until you die, but don't check out completely. Otherwise, you just wasted the last 10 years of your life. Instead, set boundaries. Learn to set boundaries. You are working 9 to 5. Great. Don't be the guy who works 7:30 AM to 10 PM and half the weekend. But when you are at work, work. Be impressive. Actually be impressive enough that when the boss asks you to work on Saturday, you can look them in the eyes and push back. They actually know you already earn your paycheck 9 to 5. Give them no reason to be upset. Then, the rest of the day and weekends and vacations are yours. And make sure you use your vacation days wisely. Put them around company vacation days to maximize them. Like, this last July 4th. That whole week off is just 3 vacation days. With the weekends, that's a 9-day trip on just 3 vacation days used. You can see a lot of Iceland in 9 days. Broccoli says, sure. That's been my approach. I'm a tech person. A software/database developer. I make good money, but I long ago decided to be content with a modest home, a modest, cheap car, save diligently. And most of all, not sell my soul to claw my way to middle management. Personally, I'm sure I made the right choice. I don't want to manage shit. I don't want to be the boss of people. r/NoStupidQuestions. Fiend says, I couldn't sleep all night. I have work in 1 hour. Can I call in sick? I work with a lot of money, a lot of shitty costumers. I'm going to make mistakes and get pissed off at customers. I don't think I'll be able to do my job properly. I even have trouble phrasing this right now. Is it acceptable to call in sick? Update, ended up calling, told her I couldn't stop shitting because she asked the reason I was calling sick. I'm off today, I'll still try to be productive at home. Sherlock Obvious says, do you have PTO? Then yes. Mental health is health. Your boss isn't going to look out for your health, only you can. Fickle Future 8962 says, I had a job a while back I really kick myself for leaving. It was tech support and a easy enough job. But I left for helping someone start a bakery which I loved doing. Anyways, I could text my boss and just say I won't be making it in today for personal reasons or mental health day. He absolutely never questioned and told me it's cool. Miss that dude. Saint Duman says, when you call in sick, do you actually have to state the reason to your boss? Fiend says, kind of, I'm stressing a bit about it, and I'm thinking of lying about the reason. If it's not good enough for them, they don't really care about their employees. Sherlock Obvious says, I can't come in, I feel like shit. That much isn't even a lie. If they really press for details, the ultimate trump card is the word bowels. All of a sudden, the questions and requests for details stop. Phantasmagoria 4 says, I'm off today, I'll still try to be productive at home. Honestly, don't be productive, just rest, take it easy. Frosty Builder 7550 says, take a line from late 90s/early 2000s comedian Rodney Carrington. Next time they ask why, just say, I'm fking my sister. Is that sick enough for you? Paramecia Antic says, you're not a slave. Boom Shiki says, I work in construction, and on site orientations they are always short a hammer, in that you aren't allowed to work while tired or fatigued. It's a huge safety issue. Hey, it's Curry says, good job, show them you have no dignity and drag them down with you by making them regret asking what your symptoms are. My poop has a layer of mucus and is leaving an iridescent sheen on the surface of the bowl. This one might be too much for a doctor. I'll call a poet. r/NoStupidQuestions. No Foundation 7308 says, why are people from Middle Eastern countries considered white on American forms when asked for race? I'm 1/2 Middle Eastern. My father is from a country in the Middle Eastern region that is considered a nation country. When I look at forms, I live in the US, there's multiple boxes to check for race. Why is it that people from Middle Eastern countries are lumped into the white category? My dad certainly doesn't look white, nor does he get treated like a white male in America. Considering the government likes to categorize people, seems like this is incorrect. At least it is in my eyes. Edit, white Jesus for the win, best reasoning right there. Low Tradition 6961 says, how else are you going to get a white Jesus? No Foundation 7308 says, this actually made me laugh really hard. Best answer so far. Nearby Complaint says, I hate that this is the actual answer. Fuzzy Frame 9882 says, 1. Race is a made-up thing with regionally varying interpretations and definitions that change over time and are often only very loosely correlated to any actual genetics going on. 2. For this example specifically, years back Arab groups lobbied to be counted as white in surveys and government statistics, partly because of self-identity and partly because they wanted to be counted in the in-group. Red Black Show says, Asians, which technically includes the Middle East, weren't allowed to be American in the early 20th century. So a Middle Eastern man argued that he was white like Jesus, so that he can be a citizen. He was approved and became a citizen. Too Many Shoes 14 says, because the US government doesn't consider that a distinct race for statistical purposes. Inuwa says, I'm not sure why, but I do find it screwy. I'm half Syrian, half Filipino, so I just write mixed when I don't have an option for Middle Eastern and Pacific Islander. My logic is that I can't realistically say Caucasian when I spent most of my childhood getting bullied for having a terrorist last name and having my bags randomly checked by TSA anytime I board a plane. Like Childish Gambino once said in regards to being black, loving white dudes who call me white and then try to hate. When I wasn't white enough to use your pool when I was 8. Whiskey Epsilon says, so, with the old race classifications, the term Caucasian covered the peoples of Europe, Middle East and North Africa. r/NoStupidQuestions. Fit Performance 5273 says, how do the surgeons preserve a patient's dignity during surgery? Abraham says, I was hospitalized with an acute serious illness last year. The last thing anyone, including me, was worried about was my frigging dignity. When as an adult, another human has to wipe your ass, dignity is pretty much off the table. Hillbilly 415 says, you are at the doctor's. They see it all and don't care. I recently had an ultrasound from my ankle to my groin. When it came to my groin, the nurse used the back of her hand to nudge my sack out of the way. Dignity had nothing to do with it. They are just doing their job. Do your job and let them. In a West Bend says, you need to explain what dignity needs preservation. For example, I had eye surgery and I don't believe I had any of concerns for my dignity. Farmage 957 says, not a surgeon, but have been in the or during many operations. If the surgery happens on the part of the body that is not intimate, hands, feet, head/neck, abdomen, the back, the patient often wears underwear/covers. If they are not actively operating on private parts, they don't uncover them. If a person has an operation on their chest/genital/anus/etc. We all act like professionals. There's nothing on the patient's body that we haven't seen in med school. Mind you, our anatomy and pathology classes are filled with depictions of naked people, and we have classes where we work and study on cadavers, that is. People who have donated their bodies for these exact reasons. In terms of privacy among other patients, the OR is closed from the public and a random Joe can't just waltz into it and stare at patients. For what it's worth, if an anorectal surgeon is performing surgery on a patient's anus, know that they have seen thousands of anuses in their career, so you're just one of those thousands. They don't leave work and gossip about patients' butts. Also, if doctors are under time pressure to save a patient's life, their modesty and dignity is the least of their worries. They just want to fix you up, so you feel better. r/NoStupidQuestions. Deep Hurting says, why don't dogs in moving cars with open windows leap to their death? For that matter, do little kids need instruction on restraining themselves from suicidemide? Could you raise a dog, never take it for a ride, then you do, and they're all like rough, greatest air conditioner ever rough, and it's roadkill boza. Argilist says, sometimes they do. Over the Line says, had a friend in college with a dog called Mary Jane, and she jumped out of the back window of a 4Runner at 70+ miles per hour. She survived and we raised money, and he got her mended, but it was bad. Dogs definitely jump out of cars. Reddit 374 says, gosh. Mine did one day. She's a Kelpie and was in the middle of the back seat between two children. A loud motorcycle pulled up beside us at the light, and she was quick as a whip. She gracefully leapt through the window and proceeded to bark at the bike. Thankfully we were stopped, so we just called her back in. I absolutely never travel with the windows down that far anymore. Academic Eagle 4001 says, my dog jumped out the window at a stop BC. There was a group of children and he wanted to play with them. Fit Definition 4634 says, dogs do. I typically open the window just an inch or so to keep my overly friendly husky in. As far as kids go, they should be buckled into a car seat for the first several years, and buckled in with the seat belt after that. Most cars have child safety locks which prevent the door from being opened from the inside. Power windows also have a lock feature that the driver can activate. Edupical says, a few years ago I had to take my dog to the emergency vet. He had passed out randomly in the backyard. We were waiting when this dude came in with the biggest pit bull I've ever seen. It had jumped out of his truck and the car next to it had run over the very end of the dog's tail. It was still bleeding pretty profusely. The problem was that it was the friendliest, happiest dog in the world, and it was very happy to see us. So it started wagging its very long tail around. Blood flew in every direction. On the floor, on the walls, on us, on the owner, on my dog, on the water fountain. Everywhere. The guy apologized, but we didn't really care that much, because it was great to see such a happy dog, especially considering its tail. Fast forward to when the vet finally got to see us. She was in scrubs that I initially thought were polka dotted. Nope. Blood. It was hilarious. And my dog was fine too. r/NoStupidQuestions. Tacos for Life 23 says, what was the big push behind the Got Milk campaign in the 90s? OKBet 560 says, it all started with dairy shortages in the 1970s. The price of dairy products rose 30% at the time, and Jimmy Carter decided to do something about it. So he provided $2 billion to subsidize the dairy industry and encourage dairy farmers to increase production. It worked, but too well. Dairy farmers were producing dairy out the ass like never before, and the government was buying the surplus. Most of the surplus was turned into cheese, because it had a longer shelf life, but a lot of it was kept as milk. The government was buying up all this cheese, but wasn't really doing anything with it other than sticking it in underground storage in Missouri. By the 80s, there were 500 million pounds of cheese stored in this bunker. So Reagan comes along, and the Secretary of Agriculture shows up to the White House with a moldy block of cheese, and says we've got 500 million pounds of this shit, what do? We do. They decided to give it away through a program called the Temporary Emergency Food Assistance Program, TEFAP, and so-called government cheese was born. Government cheese was donated to food shelters, homeless shelters, etc. This worked a little bit, but the amount of cheese coming in was still far outpacing the amount going out through this program. Flash forward to the Clinton era. Seeing all the dairy the government had, he decided something else needed to be done. So his administration, along with a couple other organizations, started an offshoot of the USDA and called it Dairy Management Incorporated and gave DMI an annual budget of $140 million. The whole goal of DMI was to increase dairy consumption in Americans, so the government could offload their dairy and buy less from farmers. One of DMI's first actions, along with the California Milk Processor Board, was to create the Got Milk campaign. Got Milk failed because milk consumption had been declining for years and was continuing to trend down. Less people were buying milk, which was an issue for the government. DMI is also the reason why milk is served with public school lunches. Because of this failure, more recently DMI has tried a different approach to increase dairy consumption in the US. They pay companies like Taco Bell, Domino's, etc. to come out with more products with cheese. No shit, most of the cheesy crusts, cheesy breads, double steak quesadillas, etc. are only around because DMI pays these companies millions to roll these products out and advertise them. That's why you see so many fast food products with cheese now. So when you go to Taco Bell and get a double steak quesadilla, just know that the only reason you can order that is because Jimmy Carter wanted to decrease the cost of dairy, resulting in rampant overproduction and the government trying anything they can to offload all the frickin' cheese they have to buy. Concise Pirate says, It was paid for by an alliance of dairy companies. r/no stupid questions. No lunch 4249 says, what do I do when the cleaning lady is at my house? My wife and I have been going through a stressful time in our lives lately. As a nice gesture, my wife's friends paid for a maid to come by our house Monday. I grew up in a lower middle class household lol. We never had a cleaning person come. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do or what to expect, and I have so many questions. Should I not be around the house while they clean? Do I have to give them specific instructions? I'm planning on tidying up some clutter, random books not on the shelf and papers lying around that are in the way, but do I need to do more than that to prepare for her arrival? Also, is this the kind of thing I should tip for? Thanks in advance. Nihilate says, hey op, I own a cleaning business. Totally fine for you to be at home. Most customers will be busy in another part of the house while we are cleaning. You shouldn't have to give instructions if they are professionals, but if there's any areas that are particularly important to you, then it's fine to point out. Tipping is completely optional, but I'm sure they would appreciate it. No lunch 4249 says, thanks, appreciate it. Our home is pretty small, only about 1 KSF. Any ballpark idea of how long it might take them? It's not a complete pigsty, lol. But it's not sparkling either. Nihilate says, depends if they work solo or in teams. If solo, 1 KSQFT would probably take about 2 to 3 hours. Ricassidy says, I had a monster as a roommate a couple of years ago, and after I evicted him, my other roommate and I agreed we would clean up and then get a maid service moving forward. We are generally tidy people. Roommate works out of the house with clients, so needs it nice. We generally wash any dishes and put dirty laundry in bins. I also scoop the cat box. Recycling and garbage are in the proper place, but not taken out. We close any doors to rooms we don't want cleaned. My roommate is a dominatrix, and yeah, a bedroom is off limits because it is actually scary in there. We don't stick around when the maid is there. I'm at work, roommate is away. I leave the money on the living room coffee table. If I want my bed sheets changed, I wash them and leave the unmade bed piled on the bed. Maid vacuums, tidies, dusts, cleans kitchen and fridge and bathroom, mops, makes my bed, makes everything look nice. She puts clean dishes away too. Argrandum says, stand on the kitchen table naked overseeing the situation to assert dominance. Cliffy73 says, if you have somewhere you can go, you could do that. But you don't have to make up errands just to be out of th house. Like, don't just sit at the library or the park staring into space if that's not something you were planning to do anyway. You do not have to give them instructions, although you can in very general terms if there's a particular thing you want done in an atypical way, but mostly they are being paid to clean things the way things normally get cleaned, so they know what they are doing. If you're going to be in the house, try not to be in the room they are actively working on, but if you have to be there, it's no big deal. Be dressed when they arrive. Greet them if you're there, even if they have a key, and let themselves in, just so you don't give them a jump scare when they see you. If you leave or return while they're there, let them know. r/no stupid questions. Asian Hawk says, what can legally be done to stop my neighbor's large dog from terrorizing my family? Recently, I rented a home to accommodate my elderly parents. We'll care for them as they have failing health. My parents, both in their mid-80s, enjoy sitting in the backyard and relaxing. That is until my neighbor decided to get this massive dog. Now there's barking day and night. AMD, the dog even leaps up onto the 6 feet fence and growl at my parents. The dog has also broken pieces of the old wooden fence. I have complained to the landlady who, at most, puts a note on the neighbor's door. Something which the neighbor ignores. I have asked the neighbor, and he can care less. What can I do? Do dog whistles work? Mentalfless1 says. Police. Animal control. Noise ordinance. Vwutti 2001 says. Get bear mace just in case it actually breaks through the fence and attacks. Sometimes dogs are not as vicious as they seem, other times they are. Unfortunately, unless the dog has actually done something, I don't think that there's much you can do. Good luck. Gohikeski says. In my city, animal control enforces nuisance barking laws. If a dog barks for X minutes within Y hours, there are escalating consequences. However, your city may be different, but try animal control. Maffin 117 says. Depends where you live, laws vary from country to country, state to state, even city to city or town to town. Without that info, no one can give you great advice. The bizatch of it is chances are, legally, as long as the dog stays in the other yard it can bark and growl and you as much as it wants, and there's nothing you can do. Obviously you're worried about the dog jumping the fence or getting out and attacking someone, but besides building a bigger fence on your side, which would be dumb cause you're a renter, there isn't a ton you can do. Also, I know you said you complained to the landlady. But have you, the actual neighbor, actually gone to try to talk to your neighbor face to face and try to be nice/cordial? Maybe your neighbor is a reasonable person and will have no problem bringing their dog inside when your elderly parents are sitting outside or working with you to try and get the dog to not bark at you all. Or maybe your neighbor is an asshole and won't give a shit. Archporn says. You could try /r/legal advice. I think if the dog is barking at night you can file a noise complaint, and if it keeps happening they'd get in trouble. Bad Prize 4368 says. Try some high frequency device near the fence that will drive his ass crazy. He won't want to go outside. r/NoStupidQuestions. Battle Angel 1999 says. Why do so many shows only do 8 episodes every 2 years nowadays? I almost can't believe we used to get 21 to 26 episodes every year. I can understand why some shows do it. Some of them even benefit from it, but that can't be the case for every show. Can it? It's so hard to remember what happened after 2 years. It makes me less inclined to actually watch. Plus if you have a crappy season I'm definitely not going to want to watch. Why did this become more common? I'm genuinely curious. Zombie Catfish says. I think the writer's strike affected shows coming out, but I don't think it'll be the new norm. Netflix though, they've been like this since before the strike. Even though they say it's official a new season is coming, it'll be years before it actually comes out. I waited 3 years for the second season of Sweet Home, 2 years for this season of Cobra Kai, and who knows how long before we get a new season of Squid Games. It's incredibly annoying. My son likes Cobra Kai and Wednesday, but they waited so long to come out. He's a teenager now and doesn't care about those kind of shows anymore. Calm Sorcerer says. You just finished that last hot episode, didn't you? Disastrous Whale 564 says. Also those kinds of series that have 20 plus episodes are formulaic in their stories, whereas ones with only 6 to 10 have more of a story, which means different sets, different casts, which means more people, which makes it more expensive and longer to make, but more of a story. Insomniadict says. A big part of the episode count issue is the economics of streaming. A streaming service marketing a new show that releases all at once or in a short period will get just as many subscribers if the season is 8 episodes or 20, so why spend the money on more than you need? Halodeck Gizmapa says. Because the market plan is not to sell commercial space anymore. It's to get you to pay a monthly subscription. The slower and less frequent the content is released, the more time you remain subscribed waiting for a release. Conchoborate says. Episodes are getting more expensive. And people are less accepting of filler episodes. How many pointless episodes were there in GOT or Breaking Bad? How about older shows like X-Files or Buffy? And I think America is also slowly getting rules protecting actors, which limits their schedules. Globalwoods says, other than the world events people have mentioned, there's a couple of major factors. 1. Production values are way higher. Partly because of inflation and the economy, partly because of viewer expectations, partly because we are just in a golden age of TV now where TV isn't as cheap and demeaning as it once was, with legit movie stars starring in them. So it's not really feasible to make 20 plus episodes of a season anymore at those costs. 2. Risk aversion. Ad revenue is down across the board, partly because of the economy, partly because of market saturation and the rise of technology to avoid ads, and streaming has disrupted traditional episodic and syndication models. So no one really wants to commit to 20 plus episode seasons and plan ahead for multiple seasons. So you're releasing your 6 or 8 episodes, seeing how they do over time. With non-linear TV, it could take weeks or months for a genuine hit to be. r/NoStupidQuestions. Menace Row 216 says, why is it called French fries if it originated from Belgium? Poppin Wheelers says, the potatoes are cut French style. They are Frenched, fried potatoes. Cognac and Swishes says, dropping the ed like that has happened to lots of foods for some reason. For example, ice cream and popcorn used to iced cream and popcorn. Imnath and I Am Handsome says, this is a common misconception. French fries were not first cooked in Belgium, they were first cooked in Greece. Al4I Outer Take says, I think it's still disputed whether they came from Belgium or France. The name probably comes from the fact that deep frying food was known as French frying or cooking in the French manner. The name likely evolved from that. Thowaway Ending says, I always assumed because the potato is French cut and fried. But I don't actually know why they are called that. Quirky Penalty 8519 says, because half of Belgium speaks French, the other, Dutch. Stella Campus says, I think it much more likely that fried potatoes originated in Spain given that they had potatoes from the 1600s on and already fried other foods. They may even have originated among the Incas, as the Spanish introduced the frying of food to them. CTHD33 says, what about Belgian waffles? Are they from France? OK Helicopter 8626 says, the real answer is that they were named by American soldiers in WW2, stationed in a French-speaking region of Belgium. And we all know how good Americans are at geography. Jtanurplus says, potatoes were first domesticated in Peru between 8000 and 5000 BC. Maybe they should be Peruvian fries. Seaman 155 says, because Americans generally suck at geography. r/NoStupidQuestions. I'm not ready for it 9 says, why is it so frowned upon to have money as a reason to want a job? Dilettante says, when they ask you why you want the job, they are looking for a reason you chose them over other jobs. They know you want money. But you could get money from lots of jobs. Why are you choosing them? Norman Scum says, I've heard so many good things about this place that line will snag you the job no matter what. /178 says, it's not. Do you mean in interviews? If so, it's because it doesn't understand the question. They want to know why you want to work there specifically when any job will offer you money. Siberwk says, interviews aren't about the truth. They're about knowing what to say. What to say isn't I'm in it because I want money. Nerelm says, You can earn money in any job. Why do you want to work here rather than somewhere else? Please don't say you've been turned down everywhere else. Josh 439 says, what would you think if you went on a date with someone, you asked them why did you decide to go out with me? Then they said, because you're hotter than the person I'm currently dating. Would you want to go out with that person versus someone who likes your hobbies and interests? Would you have confidence they'll stick around for the long term? Elysia 120 says, it's the laziest answer you could possibly come up with. Geeky says, if you can choose between two teachers, whether for yourself or for your kid, and one loves teaching while the other hates it but just needs the paycheck, which do you think will be the better teacher? If you need a mechanic and you can choose between one guy who loves working on cars and one who just needed a job, who do you think will do a better job fixing your car? If you need heart surgery and you can choose between a doctor who loves being a heart surgeon and one who'd rather be doing something else but pursued surgery because it makes lots of money, which surgeon would you rather have operate on you? People who like their job tend to be better at their job. It's that simple. And if you have to work with that person, people who like their job also tend to be more pleasant to be around in the workplace. r/NoStupidQuestions. Vicar 253 says, why are people becoming so increasingly rude/aggressive? Might be subjective, but just something I noticed over the past few years. Yelling at service workers. Aggressive driving. Slamming the door in the face of the person walking behind. Insults and straight up threats over the smallest things on social media. Destroying good public things that are meant to be for everyone, like public toilets, free little libraries or picnic tables. Dropping your trash on the ground when there's a trash can 3 steps away. Dropping your trash on other people's property, not even kidding. The amount of to-go cups, booze bottles and plastic wrappers people have just thrown over the fence into my garden over the years is unreal. My upstairs neighbor blasting loud music at 2 AM right over my bedroom when he knows I have to get up for work at 5. People blocking the disabled/pregnant/elderly seats on the bus even when a disabled/pregnant/elderly person needs them, because I was here first. The list goes on. I work in healthcare, and we got everything from being yelled at on the phone to being literally physically threatened and assaulted. It definitely got worse during the pandemic, but the general tendency was already there before that. It's gotten so bad at this point I feel like I just want to buy a house in the woods and get as far away as possible from all the aggression. It costs absolutely nothing to not actively be an asshole. It takes nothing away from you, and still? Am I too soft? Have people lost their damn minds? Has it always been like this but less noticeable? What the hell is going on? Ritakoa says, my personal theory is that people are more brazen thanks to social media, and when they spend enough time running their mouth online they stress test it in person. However, to be clear, it's not as though people weren't garbage before the internet. Selva Murmurs says, here in the U.S. quality of life has gone down and cost of living has gone up, especially housing and food. Everything is getting smaller and worse quality. There is no American dream anymore. Everyone is just trying to survive and use mindless consumption as their personal opium. Hating their jobs, hating their lives. Conservative media also thrives off anger and division, so does its best to rile up its base. They tell people that any good act is disingenuous virtue signaling, actively try to hobble to government from changing anything for the better, and make living here worse by attacking social programs and the social safety net. Our government is a dysfunctional circus right now, wasting taxpayer money holding a partisan kangaroo court attacking Hunter Biden when everyone knows it's going to go nowhere and is just total waste of time, to be a total waste of time. Our politicians are bought by money interests and would rather spend more money on the military than the people. It costs billions to do what should be simple things like build a rail line because of the layers and layers of government contractors who suck as much out of the system as possible every step of the way. They literally don't care about us. Meanwhile, we live in the richest country during the richest period of our planet's history, but all that wealth is concentrated to the psychopaths who fight over who can step over all their employees and extract as much labor as possible while underpaying and killing them. Not Mirag name says. Nope, I think you are right and nailed it. Soft. Kind and good. I honest to good think the constant nudging from Fox News has a lot to do with it. The constant those evil and always saying it is time or all will be lost stuff puts their devoted in an aggressive stance. Then the targeted get defensive. It goes round and round and inevitably leaves everyone on edge and ready for a fight. Basically peer pressure to be aggressive. r/NoStupidQuestions. Flu says. Why was Mangiones' channel deleted? Well, the title says it all. Yesterday, his channel existed and just uploaded a video. It was a countdown with the message, "If you see this, I'm already under arrest." I woke up this morning and the channel ceased to exist. Why? Is because he's an alleged criminal? I'm not wanting to discuss this point. A person that breaks a law is a criminal, be it that you agree with his point of view or not. What is the specific American law that denies a criminal, again, allegedly, a platform? Rhomboidus says. There is no law. YouTube constantly removes anything they think might generate bad publicity or piss off advertisers. Flu says. Okay, makes sense. Thank you. Evergreetestix says. Yep, YouTube has deleted and demonetized channels for a lot less. Disastrous Visit 9319 says. YouTube can delete anyone's YouTube channel for any reason. Lsxi says. That channel was fake. Lumpuswafflebatus says. I don't think that was a real channel tbh. Its PFP was already circulating on the internet before the channel's discovery, and his bio was pulled from other social media sites. It's just like the manifesto that was going around yesterday, it's fake garbage. At that point, the channel was probably pulled for impersonation. Maffin117 says. There's no law or anything, YouTube can do wherever they want. YouTube likely just decided we don't want to deal with the controversy of having this in our website. Drew P. Wiener says. It can, and will, do anything they want with an account, for any reason. All in the fine print when signing up. Sparrow-Management 2215 says. YouTube is a private company and controls what they do and do not allow on their platform. While I question their profit-driven motives and side-eye some questionable stuff they do allow, they have the right to remove whatever they want, even if it's a video of puppies and kittens. Basically the online equivalent of no shirt, no shoes, no service. So, they removed his video. Potential Wish 4943 says. Thank the activists who said your ads are playing on content we consider harmful a few years ago to get people's channels shut down as a tactic. Now YouTube removes anything it thinks might spook people who play ads. r/NoStupidQuestions. Income Acceptable 3516 says. What are you thankful for? Today is a good day to learn. QT Hippus says. For everything, always be grateful for everything you have, no matter how small it is. Skitishiria says. I'm thankful for alcohol. I've organized pretty much my whole life around it. Nobody likes me, but that's okay. David Bunny Wolf says. Well, I'm thankful I've got a roof over my head, family and friends that love me, a gaming PC and consoles that work, and tasty food in the fridge. And probably more. Lucky Shoulder 8690 says, no baby mamas, no divorces, same with my parents, my health, my pets, my job. Izimk says, to be able to wake up each and every morning and not die in my sleep and rot until my neighbors smell me rot and have the police come into my house to find me dead on my bed. Crab Shark says, I'm thankful for friends, yes, friends. Especially the one where Joey buys Chandler a duck. Chemistry Such 5519 says, good food, good people, my dog, Warhammer 40k and orgasms. Thesis Lucas 69 says, I'm thankful for my health, my family, and the small moments that make life feel worth it. Honestly, even on tough days, those are the things that keep me grounded. Original Engine 7548 says, my health. I'm 40 and haven't had any health issues yet. Whiskey Squire says, my divorce attorney. Aggressive Living 8645 says, I'm grateful to my mum, who raised me, and my 2 older brothers single-handedly, while having to endure my father's constant verbal abuse. I'm thankful for having a good job with kind-hearted people surrounding me, and friends that care about me. Zoodle11 says, shitty weather and concrete blocks. r/NoStupidQuestions. Opposite Cut 1160 says, can strong vibrators, specifically the Hitachi wand, actually cause permanent nerve damage on erogenous zones, or is that a myth? Just a little blip to my question. I'm a guy. I love the Hitachi wand to use on myself and on my partner. Is it actually possible to permanently burn out the nerve endings from overstimulation, or is that just sex misinformation? Tech Voice says, no. Vibrations can cause permanent nerve damage, but that happens to the people who have to use a jackhammer or similar industrial equipment for hours on end, every day for years. A vibrator is nowhere near powerful enough to damage nerves in this manner. They can cause temporary loss of sensitivity. I have found that, if I have an extended session, by the time I've been going for a while I'll feel a little numb, though that's also true if I just use my hand for long enough, to be fair. That goes away after a few hours. They can also reduce sensitivity a bit more long term. If you use them a lot, you can tell this is happening if you find you need higher and higher settings to get off. This can be sorted in much the same way death grip syndrome can, by abstaining from masturbation for a few weeks or months, and reintroducing sensation at a lower level. Opposite Cut 1160 says, I've never heard the term death grip used in this context before starting this thread, good to know, thanks. Tartwop says, oh yeah, it's a common consequence when masturbating a thing with a strong pressure which we cannot be replicated by penetration, so they need to make their thing relearn pleasure with less pressure, learning to appreciate a more delicate touch. Beckorg19 says, definitely not. The only issue that can arise is that if it's all you use to orgasm, you can temporarily numb yourself to less aggressive stimulation. It's the female equivalent of death grip, leading to trouble orgasming. Opposite Cut 1160 says, but I suppose temporary is the key word there? So if that happened we could just abstain from the toy use for a bit. Beckorg19 says, for sure. At least in every anecdotal conversation I've seen about it online, a few weeks or months of not using it resets you just fine. Fieldy 409 says, I think if you use perfect masturbation toys all the time then you can get used to it, and you get used to that level of pleasure finding imperfect genitals during real sex to not be enough. Like you raise the standard of what gets you off. Just like how a man with a strong grip can masturbate with that tight grip so much that a girl's grip strength or even her vagina can feel too loose. Direct Delta 13 says, Well, you could be at risk for autonomic dysreflexia if you happen to have a spinal cord injury. A vibrator can cause temporary damage, diminished function in the nerve axons. I suppose permanent damage could be possible, but it would be incredibly rare. No serious scientific study has claimed such. r/NoStupidQuestions. Parking Building 3956 says, Men, do you ever read someone's message 100 times or more because that message is special to you? If you want to, you can share with me why is that message so special to you. Burning Candle says, are you guys getting special messages? Admirablood7753 says, no. Stormidays 123 says, usually it's me sending those special messages, so when I receive one. Yes. Very much so. Opening ad 2769 says, I have a note my wife wrote me, and I look at it often. Denver Phoenix says, I don't know about 100 times, but yes. This woman I was just dating, I would reread the texts we sent. So did she. The stuff she said had me on the proverbial cloud 9. I hadn't felt this way since I was a teenager 30 plus years ago. I wish she was still in my life. Choice Group 5322 says, always. Running Pirate says, I thought I had a special message, but when I decoded it, it read be sure to drink your Ovaltine. Bear Dead Liberal says, absolutely yes. Shawcobbler 1212 says, yeah, when I did get specials texts or messages, I'd screenshot them and save them to have. I still look back on them really fondly. They can be from friends or girlfriends at the time. It's nice to have a piece of time captured and nice to look back on. One message in particular will always stand out. It's from my first girlfriend, and it was out of nowhere, maybe 9/10 months into our relationship, and she wrote 20 reasons I love you in a message. I went for a shower, and she said okay enjoy X, and then I got out of the shower, dried off and came back to continue our conversation, and saw this amazing list of stuff she loved about me. I couldn't believe it as it was my first GF, we were 18, and I wasn't expecting it. I know a lot of people would cringe and not believe in 18 years having love between them, but the joy and happiness I felt in that moment was unlike I've ever felt. Still makes me feel to this day, just to remember. r/NoStupidQuestions. Bidetma Demagay says, I've had my dog this entire life. We've only ever lived in apartments with no doorbells. Has never been in a house with a traditional doorbell. Yet, when he hears a doorbell on TV, he barks and runs to the front door. How can this be? Bullwinkle's progeny says, he saw the dogs on TV do it. I'm kidding, but dogs learn things and they can learn them extremely quickly. Gradine Descenting says, he saw the dogs on TV do it. I hope you are right. Suwant says, he knows from hearing it and seeing people at the front door on TV. Dogs can be very smart, they can surprise you. Farisi Hinter 46 says, and they do legitimately observe what's on TV. My dog goes nuts when they see animals on it. Positive Attempt 435 says, my cats literally watch those new detectable delicables commercials every time. At least it seems like they do. Newest account 2023 says, he knows that front door equals outside. Maybe any unfamiliar sound he'll think of must go outside to see what the noise is. Locroix Lemon says, my dogs do this. I've only ever had a Ring doorbell. It never makes the doorbell noise, but if one goes off on TV they bark at the door. Jinx Latrin says, same, usually doorbell noises on podcasts. If we are in the car he'll tilt his head and bark confusedly because there's no front door. Rather Dashing says, Where did he live when he was a puppy still with his mum? Side EED says. Mine does the same thing and we have a Ring doorbell. Hot Refrigerator 623 says. We had a dog who would get really excited hearing fireworks, gunshots, thunder and wanted to go outside and see what was happening. This dog was half a hunting breed who had never been hunting, so I think it's some form of genetic memory. Lancer Blue says. Same, never have had a doorbell. Always barks at door when it's played on TV. Mraroficross says. My cats understand the doorbell somehow too, could be learned as a kitten, IDK. It got so bad, because the only time ours rang was for deliverers who immediately left, that I actually ring our own bell and stand there so they could be validated about expecting to see someone at the door. r/NoStupidQuestions. Successful Lad 8275 says. I don't miss people when they are gone. Is something wrong with me? I don't miss people when they are out of my life, like dead, gone away or no longer in my circle. I tend to be out of sight, out of mind to an extreme degree. I don't forget they exist, it's more like I forget to remember them, if that makes sense. Is anyone else like this? Is it a defense mechanism? I'm estranged from my entire family and they live like a mile away. We haven't spoken in months due to a falling out over my divorce, but I don't really miss them. We went from spending nearly every day together to no contact at all overnight and it's been 3 months. I guess they don't miss me either. Zephysaxis says. I don't do this either. I don't look through photos or think about anyone really. I have ADD, and they say it's one of the symptoms, but I genuinely just don't really miss anyone ever. I don't really reach out to hang out. I don't think about them. I do enjoy time with other people, but if I'm left alone I don't really yearn for their company. I'm struggling with staying connected with my family after moving out. My sisters are growing up, and I just kind of don't ever think of seeing them unless they ask. I can't give an answer, but at least know you aren't alone. The only real people I miss seeing are the people I'm kind of obligated to be around, like workmates / people I live with. Other than that they're rarely on my mind. Dogger99 says. I do the same. I'm glad I have some company. Let's be best friends for the next few years and then completely stop talking to each other, yeah? Cuckoo Cupid says. Some people are naturally introverted and prefer spending time alone. They may not feel the need for constant social interaction and may not experience strong feelings of loneliness or isolation when people are absent. Nightverse says. Feel you. I'm the same way, and it's just how I cope. You're not alone. Modemir11 says. This could actually suggest secure attachment. Your brain knows you don't need to cling to feel connected. Halas87 says. I know what you mean. I moved country and people are like you must really miss your family and friends. I typically agree with them because it's kind of the expected response, but honestly, don't miss them at all. I love my family and we talk occasionally, maybe once every couple of months, but I have to make a conscious effort to call. I often think there's something wrong with me in that way and respect / mildly envy those who have really strong relationships. But it's just not me. Harlow Bolding says. Average ad behavior. Honestly, I have friends who do this, and I also sometimes am like this. We don't love each other any less for it, it's just the way some brains work. Fenrir here says. People I thought I cared for have passed away in my life, but I did not mourn, and I did not grieve. This may be just the way I am. I still feel bad, and I understand it is a loss. I have cried over much less. Much less. I wonder what it may mean sometimes. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.